All right, and we're off. Looks like LinkedIn didn't link up with us, so we'll just let it be. All right, Scott Stevens here with a look at a little bit of weather around the country and a few other places around the world that have at least caught somebody's attention, my attention, at least over the course of the day. And some of these stories are even older than that. The main one, the big one outside of the States, outside of Hurricane Delta now, which is a fat category 3, 4 storm, more four now than three, as it has rapidly intensified, has to be the Three Gorges Dam. Has to be the Three Gorges Dam. That is a crazy situation that we've got going on in China. We've got a mile and a half long wall of cement, plumbing, turbines, more electrical stuff, all of that kind of stuff locked up in this dam. And now the water levels, well, let's go over here and have a look at it, are just astronomically high, at least 30 feet above what is maximum fill level, and still more water comes into it than is being released. All right, this is one of the few views I have seen from the top of this dam since this whole situation began about 3 months ago. The dam used to be open for transit across the top, but that is no longer the case. But what caught this observer's attention is the trash, just the mountains of trash. And who knows how much is below the water level, but there is just gobs of it that they're having to gather on up, because eventually this has to go through the turbines. It has to be run through the system. And there's just more there than would likely be safe to travel through the turbines and the gateways without creating issues. So the report, the Three Gorges Dam in China has broken its all-time water level for 3 consecutive days, and this was tweeted yesterday. The record now exceeds 170 meters. This is just under 24 meters above the warning level. And dam operators are not able to increase the outflow simply due to downstream flooding. We'll take a look at this chart here. We had a peak late August 22 specifically. And then they're able to get some water out as we had a bit of a break in the monsoons and the tropical storms making landfall. But then more rain came. More dams upstream had to let go of the water that they had previously captured. And that sets us now at an all-time high yesterday as of October 5th. So it's a bit of a scary situation. Now, the rapid intensification of Hurricane Delta, has been just stunning to watch over the course of this morning. However, it is worth zooming out and witnessing one of the more unusual vortex interactions. We had Gamma, this post-tropical cyclone Gamma, right in here with winds running right about 30 knots. And then we've got the rapidly intensifying Delta. And that's going to head and probably span the gap between the Yucatan and Cuba over the next 24 to 30 hours. And then it's wide open water as it moves to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, because, good afternoon, Jane, we are towards the latter part of October, at least the mid part of October. Getting there, aren't we? What are we, 6 Octobers? I guess we're just legitimately early October, that the waters in the Gulf are now beginning to cool off. We've had a couple cool fronts out there. The sun is at absolutely a lower sun angle than it was just last month. So we're beginning to see the Gulf waters cooling off. So that is the one upside, the one bit of insurance that we have, that will not likely see Delta make landfall at the intensity that it currently is. Now, the other side to this is that we have the technology to either A, weaken the storm or amplify it. And who knows? I certainly don't know which direction this would go if that tech is at play with this storm. And that's a quote. I don't know. We'll be able to see its fingerprints on the cloud tops, and we won't know till we get down to the end. All right. I don't disagree with this, Lori. I say we close down the national media for 30 days and watch 80% of the world's problems go away. It's a possibility. And then the other interesting story, new evidence that NASA covered up the telltale biosignature of life on Venus's atmosphere back in 1978, only 2 years after 2 separate Viking 1 experiments showed evidence of life on Mars. NASA ignored or downplayed it all. And we only go in this because we've had another survey mission show up on Venus, and they didn't censor the data. So we could have probably had another dozen craft into Venus just to sample that atmosphere. And just because it's hot doesn't mean that things aren't happening under the surface. As we have known, the deeper we go, you've got protection from this very wicked atmosphere. There's things that can happen. So John Stossel had an interesting fact check experience with Facebook, and they just didn't like how he framed the climate discussion. So it's fascinating how and pervasive the censorship has happened on these media platforms. It truly makes me wonder how much longer we will be able to pull on lives on these platforms. It may not be that much longer before we have to find and develop our own platforms like we did with the websites 10, 15 years ago. If you had content, if people wanted to watch you, to listen to you, to read your material, they had to specifically go to your site rather than going to these warehouses, these clearinghouses for everybody's feeds. Yeah, it may not be a bad thing. It could help us deal with some censorship issues. All right, we just arrived at Cancun. Yeah, all the storm chasers have just shown up there just to go on through this. And of course, the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway in New Orleans this morning, just telling Jim Cantori to stay home because, when Jim shows up, that means that there's something crazy going on with the weather. The aurora kind of whipped up into an activity last night as we had a little bit of a geomagnetic storm as a result of some activity on the sun. And as we know, or will come to know on a larger scale, that as we go through grand solar minimum, that means the magnetic shield that the Earth has had up for decades, if not centuries, is now relaxed. And that is going to open the gateway for the sun to occasionally send us lashings, which would be about the best way to put it. It's just a whip of energy. And with our shields down, a Carrington-like event that happened in the 1850s could very, very easily happen. And it's not like there isn't even at the White House level, concern about an EMP or a solar storm issue. This, I love time-lapse imagery. I really don't. We'll blow this up and call it good for this. Maybe even start it back to here. It's just a wet downburst, and we can see that shower. It doesn't have to be a thunder shower, but just a shower. And restart this baby, and you can see that shaft of rain just rolling over this lake. Just a good soaker, and this targeted where we're having the fires out west would just go a great distance to help that scenario out. And then that was what we watched yesterday. Exactly. Just like this, an aircraft and a dump, but just this time from Mother Nature. All right. Where are we with fires? We've got a situation going on with not even that, guys. Let's come back into here. National preparedness level at 4. We have 76 large fires burning 4.2 million acres across the West. This is the news that two new large fires were reported yesterday, and those being in Idaho and Nevada. The total fires burned, or acres burned, now 7.8, nearly 7.9 million acres, with California with 19 active large fires, and Idaho right behind that at 15. I remember when it was just 3 not that long ago. Again, it's the drought of the West. There's no relief. There's no relief in those places that do. I see getting rain towards the end of this week. It's going to be focused up here where Western Washington State and that little sliver of the Pac Northwest west of Portland have already gotten some good rains. You see that? So maybe south of Portland, this is the 16. Let's see if we can't update this, bring this to the latest run, see how much of this we get down on in here. That takes us, okay, the run is finished. So the full entirety, essentially north of Eureka, California, forecast, doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but forecast to get at least 2-3 inches of rain, and that would go a long way to helping these firefighters out. For California, though, not much at all. Idaho does okay, northern Nevada okay, and then maybe some parts of northwestern Colorado getting some rain, but there's just not a lot in store for the immediate future. All right, record highs today. There we've got them from about Cheyenne at 81 degrees. That would tie a record set back in 1805. Hey, Rob and Karen and Vicky on board. with 8 on deck. So that's the warmth, and I'll just page through these, and we can begin to see that moving towards the south and west, or south and east, as the finally some relief comes in from the Pacific Northwest and brings some rain into even the Northern Rockies as we move through this coming weekend, with the record highs by Sunday confined to Corpus, Dalhart, Galveston, Midland, Odessa, Marfa, San Antonio, and San Angelo, those locations in line for the record heat. All right, yesterday, warmest 109 to 17 miles east of Browley, California, and Grand Lake, Colorado. Day after day after day, they're coming in with that cold spot in the nation. Delta, 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 Delta. What are we going to do with you? Or more accurately, what is it going to do with us? That's where it is, with winds right now at 145 miles an hour, sustained at 145, with a minimum central pressure at 956 millibars. That is intense. Well, all right, let's do the forecast. Not that we don't have we have this in the models, but it brings it in sometime Thursday night or Friday, and this is a very large cone of error. The models have got it a lot more narrowed down to that, and we'll look at that in a few moments. But that's at least the large cone that the guys at the NHC have indicated that it'll flow into. Here it is on the visible imagery, and it'll probably span this gap just between the Yucatan and the tip of Cuba. The radar is showing it up. We're getting to see some showers in Cuba, but the Cayman Island radar kind of out of reach. It looks like that, or the thing is down. And more than likely, I'm just going to say the thing is down. Otherwise, we would have some data in there, and we just don't right now. So that's where Delta is. The rest of the nation, the smoky conditions out west, with the fires now in northern Colorado, southwestern, southeastern Wyoming, and now some bigger ones popping up in Idaho as well. You can see those just south of Sun Valley and Blaine County, Idaho, and then Northern California. Can they catch a break? It's really kind of heartbreaking to watch the video that the stations in San Francisco, they go out with their choppers and their gimbaled cameras and really get great views of the fires. But we'll probably see some relief. We've got a couple of windy days ahead of this before some rain will probably show up, likely on Friday, Saturday in Northern California, but certainly into Washington and Oregon. But Washington and Oregon, neither of them is in the dire straits that they were a week and a half ago. Yeah, Vicky, 145 miles an hour. I have not driven a car that fast in my life. Not that I really want to. It could happen someday, but just not what I'm driving right now. All right, across the nation, the humidity kind of stuck into the southeastern states, across Florida, far deep south. But luck of these northeast winds, northeast winds, even through Louisiana into Texas, a little sliver of some humidity trying to return northbound, but it just isn't going to get that far, as we have truly and probably deliberately and decisively made that change from the summer conditions back into fall. The equinox 2-3 weeks ago now, and the sun is receding farther and farther south. There's no going back now. The cooler weather lies directly ahead, and some of the models are even bringing in some lake effect snows in the Great Lakes states in the not too distant future. We'll still deal with this big ridge out west that kind of takes a bit of a beating right in through here, through Saturday, through Sunday. We'll have some rain ashore. That's inside of 5 days. So that's the good news for the firefighters. And then the ridge builds back. But farther north through British Columbia to Washington State, that's some rain. And then I'm going to come on in here, and then we wind up a deep, deep low. But that's kind of the cold one. But it's here. Right here. We'll watch Delta come ashore, grazes Cozumel, the Yucatan, just over Medellin, and then begins a slow curve up towards middle Louisiana. That looks like it's about where it's going to make landfall. Everything has been pointed that direction for about the last 48 hours. So Louisiana, under the gun yet again. I know we have somebody popping in here often from Louisiana. I just haven't seen her going in here. But she's keenly aware of this, I'm sure. And then the snow just grazing the Great Lakes states. This is on Saturday and into Sunday. The cold air doesn't really dive in there, but we'll just wait for the second storm for that. But that's, the 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 October. And this isn't quite as deep as the models had earlier brought in the cold. This would bring frost around the 22nd all the way through Tennessee into the northern portions of the deep south. So the big news is going to be the rains, just the heavy rainfalls, and then the storm surge once again in Louisiana. These places were just picking up the trash and the debris from Laura not that long ago, and then everything else that's happened, and then snow showing up through the Rockies. Entirely different season in store. But at least for Colorado, not so much snow. We're just going to stay on. We are. It looks like we're going to stay on the dry side. Casey, I saw a very nice storm on Weather Channel radar going into Cali, Oregon, Washington, and it got completely broken down, blown up, or went into Canada. Same one around Mexico. Yeah, I can see that. I see that one. We'll trust that we get at least some moisture, quarter inch, half inch, maybe 2 inches north of Portland. That would certainly be a bonus for those folks. And then for you guys, Karen, you're going to be on the chilly side. You're just far enough north to stay out of the really, really chilly. Even that model, let's bring that in here for just a moment. We can see in West Virginia some of that higher terrain bringing, they paint a little bit of snow. Oh, goodness, this is so far out. That's the 22nd of October. That in model land is virtually fantasy world. It's fun to look at, but as far as counting on it or throwing some money on the table to gamble that'll happen, just not a good thing, not a good return, or not a good risk. All right, guys, have a great night. Catch you tomorrow, but we'll do this again. We'll be one day closer to landfall and maybe a little resolution on some of the precip to the west, and maybe the Three Gorges Dam, I hope, will still be standing. All right, catch you tomorrow. Have a great night. In the meantime,